for Zoom meetings and
good.
and YouTube. Yeah. So good morning, Jesse. We're live now, and thanks for agreeing to do this. I think the main thing that I was hoping we would get out of this is questions from the viewing, audience. We've already got one question here. We'll answer that one in a moment. And perhaps to stay on topic of the things that you can answer. I'd like this to be you answering questions rather than me answering questions, right? They can hear me anytime. So just as a test here, can you see this question on your screen?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So we'll answer this question for Fatima. But I'll answer this one. And perhaps if you've got any thoughts. The being early DQ'd doesn't help you with a high case number if you don't become current, right? So Jesse's got a perspective about regions becoming current, and actually that's one of the things I hope you'll be asked about, and I hope you'll explain. You gave a very good explanation in the Telegram chat this morning of why you think they might do that. But it doesn't. But for Fatima, like I say, unless you get current, the fact that you're early DQ'd doesn't matter. When you get current, the fact that you're early DQ'd does matter, because then you're compared to other cases that are current, and of course, by that time, presumably all cases will be current. So, it does help, but only if you can get current. All right. So anyway, let's get some questions here. Let's talk about Nepal scenario. There's no highest case number, so we're not going to talk about the highest case number because we can't predict, right? We can talk about regions going current and that sort of thing, but neither Jesse nor I can predict a highest case number, for example, in Nepal that would be satisfied. I mean, we can't predict that. We're also not going to predict dates, times, when will you be interviewed, that sort of thing. We can't do it. We just don't know. But do you want to talk about Nepal, the Kathmandu embassy that's closed?
Yeah, right. I mean, I think we can. When I look at the world, I take the facts as I see it, and then I make judgments. And then as more facts come in, I respect to keep an open mind and change. And so right now we know that the embassy is closed. And so it doesn't matter if you have number 1 or you're number 1 million in Nepal right now, because they're not doing anything. And that's the issue. And that's the problem. That's a micro problem, right? I've explained this. I think I have a view that to make sense of it for me, that we have a macro problem with the DB 2022 program where the world isn't operating as it should. And then we have a micro situation at many consulates, one being in Kathmandu, another one in Sydney, another one in, Addis. And then there are others like Cairo that are just not keeping pace with what it should. And so we need to bridge or layer or stack the macro on top of the micro to get a full picture of the problem. And everyone, wants to chirp me or say, it's too early, we don't know. And that causes me to project and not use the facts I have in hand. And the facts I have in hand are this: reservation of visas right now is now at high risk, because we know the government's challenging that legal determination that whether a judge. So I have to operate with the fact, the most conservative view, assuming that September 30th, 2022 is it. And if I don't file a lawsuit for clients, and it's not my lawsuit, it's my client's lawsuit. Let me just put that right there. If I don't file for them and win, meaning they need to get not only a judgment, but an interview and a visa, I don't see a later ability for me to do my job to the best of my ability. And so that's why now, and that's also a macro plus micro issue. I will also say this. This is another way I've framed the whole problem, and tell me if I'm wrong. I'm sure you will. So when they select people, as they did this year, they selected it based on a pace of 100% processing, right? So they collected all the tickets, right? And then they said, okay, this you won. You're selected. Here's 78,000 or so, whatever it was. You get a ticket, and that's based on 100% of processing. Well, if they switch that and they do 5%, that's a bait and switch. Okay. So in my view of the world, after litigating for 20 years, that's not appropriate. You can't do that. You can't do that with a sports tickets. You can't do it with DV tickets. Okay.
Right.
So that's how I would explain to a judge. Like, they've engaged in a bait and switch because they've given you reason to expect 100% processing. And then they've turned around and said, we'll do 5%. And don't tell me about COVID, because at the time they selected those people, we had COVID. We had COVID in 2019 as well. So that maybe is a bit of a rant, but it's how I see this issue.
Yeah. So to play devil's advocate, Judge Mehta turned that round a little bit and said yes, but of the selectees, they're told up front that they don't have a guaranteed chance of selection or processing, and they overselect, and we all know they overselect, and he's right to an extent. They did overselect. There's no doubt about that. 119,000 is too high. In the years where they select over about 100,000 selectees, there tends to be at least one region or a couple of regions, or sometimes all the regions, that don't go current. However, the 119th, I think they stuck with a sort of a fairly high level because they knew there would be some problems politically, let's say, in the world, and that some people wouldn't be able to process their cases and that sort of thing. So by over-selecting, they make sure, they're supposed to be making sure they fill the bucket, that they fill all 55K visas. And so then your point about, frankly, only trying to do 5% versus 100% of the 55 is absolutely on point.
To turn around, I guess we'll use Meta as the proverbial top here, and we'll spin it back. At the same time, he understands, of course, listen, we're not saying that you're guaranteed a visa. We're saying you're guaranteed the shot. And if you have it, like, that's why we can't change the rank numbers and order numbers. However, he also said it would plainly frustrate Congress if you only issued about 10,000. Right?
Yes, exactly.
We're on pace for 5. Yeah. And I know that number's likely to rise, and so be it. Right? I don't have those facts. When those facts come in, we'll make a new, but we don't have those facts. And so what I mean by, that is it's the same thing that, I also have a quote, a neat quote from Joe Biden in there about how critical the diversity visa program is, right? And it's not about, we can always say, oh, it's not guaranteed and, and blah, blah, blah. Well, no one ever walked back that comment. The Department of State hasn't said, we meant, yes, we overselected. We're only going to do 10% right now, right? Nobody's walked back that. And so if you have an expectation and you put it out there and you play with people like that, that's not appropriate, right? Yeah. And you need to do more. And this is where, and I know people think I'm foolish and a dreamer and all this stuff, but this is where if I were in the White House for a 10-minute meeting, or I was with Blinken for 10 minutes, I could fix this program. I believe that. Okay. Because what we would need is, we have 8 months. And so as bad as it seems now, it's a fixable problem, which speaks to why I'm doing this now. It's a fixable problem in my view. And if I had 10 minutes with either one of those, either at the White House or with Blinken, maybe both, and I'll do it. I'll try it.
Yeah.
I could fix this program, because we know, and this goes to COVID and consulates and all the stuff, the devil's advocates, we know they're at a pre-pandemic pace for other immigrant visa categories. We know that 55,000 is a drop in the bucket compared to those categories. And we know that they've just come out and committed to 100% of employment-based.
Employment, I know.
Right. So what I would say is this. You tell me where you want to interview. I'll get the people there. You can do it in a half an hour. And if people get denied, that's on them. We're talking about an interview. We're talking about an interview. We're not talking about a grant, right? We're talking about an interview. Mm-hmm. So this is a fixable issue, but it's not going to be fixed. It's not going to be fixed without filing.
Yeah. I strongly suspect that the powers that be, certainly Biden, probably Blinken, and various others, don't understand the damage that's been done. Don't really understand the pushback we're getting on 2020 and 2021. I'm sure they're defending the principles. Absolutely, I understand that. But they don't understand what's been done to the program.
Right, and this is where a lawsuit, in my view, if you have someone willing to listen, and we think we do, right? We don't have Trump administration who wanted to end the program. We have someone who came in, and one of the first things he said was, "I actually want to raise it to 80,000."
Chuck Schumer said that the other day.
Yeah,
as well.
right. Yeah. So okay. Listen, you don't understand the program. Let me bring my friend Britt Simon in here, and Jesse. We'll look like Curtis in too, and we'll make sure that everyone plays nice, and we'll just have a conversation so you understand the issue and how it can be fixed. And it doesn't have to be this. We don't have to make fiery claims of discrimination and all those types of things. That's not helpful right now for me. I'll make those claims later if I have to. What I need right now is awareness. Yeah. And because they're going to say, well, how do we fix this? If I'm aware of it now, how do I fix it? And then we can go into the solution phase, right? Yep. And I think this is doable. But to make them aware, unfortunately, in my view, the only way was to get this lawsuit on paper and on file.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with you. I think that I hope you've also sort of quoted Chuck Schumer from that. He was asked a question by a Yemeni gentleman from the Yemeni perspective, and it happened to be a meeting, I'm sure, with Yemeni people in New York. But still, it was Chuck Schumer's response to me was a very normal human moment, where when asked about the DV, he's not thinking about the problems. He just responded, "Yeah, we want to increase that to 80K." Well, fix the damage that's being done, but the problem is awareness. He doesn't know the damage that's being done. The Congress don't understand the damage and the perspective that's going on. And so, yeah, I think it's awareness. I think you're absolutely right. Awareness, but lawsuits in the meantime.
And it's funny. I actually just finished a book about KGB in Russia many years ago, and there was always a failure from the line officers at the KGB to raise an issue. And so you had, whether it was maybe it was a spy who got away, right? Because the line officers were so afraid to tell their superiors about the problem that it never became fixable, right? This country, I believe, is different. I think, but I do believe that the consulates are using the cover of maybe COVID and some, and rightfully so, some issues in specific countries where there are situations, civil strife and that sort of thing. However, there are ways to get around all that if there's a want to. A want to. Yeah. I mean, we can talk about Sydney, but we're on, I mean, that is just, come on, you're moving, you're moving.
They've known they were moving for 2 years.
Well, and they're moving. Not only are they're moving, but they're also saying to other immigrant visa categories, you can go to Melbourne, but for anyone else, it's no. And like if Chuck Schumer was aware of that specific issue, like he'd be like, that doesn't make sense.
He'd be on the phone. No, he'd be on the phone.
And so that's what we're doing, right? I mean, and I really do. I say this, and people think, wow, that's crazy. I really do believe that if we can make this awareness, we have midterms in November. And if we can get awareness through a lawsuit or through other campaigns, Twitter, what have you, and we can get people in the room who can make decisions at a high authority, we can maybe not have to litigate for the entire year. But that's not our base case. Our base case is we need a judgment.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to show I've got another question lined up, but let me just show as an example of kind of what you're saying there. I honestly, people think that there is some sort of malintent, behind a lot of this chaos. There isn't malintent. There is simply incompetence, frankly. This is a response which really should be in evidence. From one of the consulars recently. This is over the last few days, and they refer to the prioritization scheme. Right down here is the link of the prioritization scheme, and the tier 1 through tier 4, and basically saying they're not doing DV because it's in tier 4. And this was retracted in December 9th. So
you need to send that to me.
Yeah, okay. They're still sending it out. I mean, it's just, that's incompetence. That's not them trying to be nasty. That's just plain old stupidity.
Well, it's the same thing you flagged with scheduling people who are not current and actually giving the visa to someone who's not current. I mean, that is that's a staff issue, right? But that's a correctable issue, right?
Yeah.
It's more, so you just have to have eyes on the problem, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I've referred to it sometimes as willful blindness, right? It's like everyone's looking the other way, and then they're like, oh, okay. So it's about changing the willful blindness until, and making them willfully aware, and then
exactly.
And fixing it. We don't have Trump. I mean, Trump, we knew, like, that wall was never coming down.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So this is a related question. I think we just answered the first part of that. Why is KCC not doing good work? It's sort of incompetence, really. But the second part of this question, I just wanted to make sure you're aware as well. So they increased personnel 40%. Is it true? Yes, it is true. They posted a couple of declarations in the Rye lawsuit, I think, perhaps in the Good Luck lawsuit. One showing in July of last year they had 32 contract staff, and now they've got 43 contract staff. A later declaration from Miles Morgan. So they've told us they've got the resources at KCC. They're no longer doing at least one significant part of their workload, which is the document processing. They're not answering the phone. That's another significant part of their workload. They've got 40% more staff. KCC have the capacity to do a blitz and say, yeah, we're going to schedule, thousands of interviews a month. It then just comes down to embassy willingness,
that to me is not helpful for the government, right?
Right. No, exactly. Don't tell us that you've got COVID problems when you've managed somehow, or don't tell us you've got staffing problems when you've.
Like, we have all these people.
Yeah, here's your 2 declarations, Miles Morgan. Okay, question for you: will you be having a second lawsuit later for DV 2022?
I don't plan on it. I don't hope so. I mean, no. What we have done is we're filing Tuesday. We've let people. We've kind of opened up a couple people so as not to exclude them, and including, I think, today, to the frustration of the staff who works for us. But no, I think we really want to let the people, our group, who are willing to come on with us and try to win for them. And I won't be doing it. I don't think that. I mean, but I need more facts for why later, what's going on. So I think it's kind of a now thing for me. And the other thing is this, speaking to when you get later into the year, I know people say this, you get later in the year and maybe you say, well, I want to be current. I want to have, everything. Well, your time shrinks, and then you have to go get an injunction, and then, you rush the judge. You don't have time to educate properly, in my view. And I've done a lot of injunction litigation. That's primarily been my life for 2.5 years, with class actions and other things other than DV. And I think what happens is judges get angry because they're rushed. The government's angry. They won't negotiate. They're aggravated. You don't have good time to be your best self, and you can just not do well as well. We've certainly won. I mean, the whole healthcare insurance proclamation case, public charge, all that stuff that we were involved in was successful. I mean, Trump made it very easy in some ways. Yeah. However, with this situation for you, it's probably a now thing for us.
Yeah. Can I read back to you a little bit what I've understood from your various comments? I'm not sure people have got exactly the right idea of what you've said in terms of why you're filing now. And you actually said this morning in a Telegram response that you almost feel it's almost later than it should be. You should have filed in January. So, this is the earliest you can file. But, so So some clear points that you've made. You've pointed out that an injunction is painful for everyone and has a higher standard, right? You've pointed out that you're concerned about a case for reservation at the moment. That's not where you're going at the moment. You're filing early enough so that we can have a remedy that gives them time to actually just do their job. And that far be it from being late in filing, you're actually early in filing, you're actually late in filing. If anything, you would have liked more time to give the government more time to fix the problems, etc., as opposed to having a reservation order, which we know now is obviously particularly painful to the government, and that's why they're challenging it in 2020 and 2021 cases, right? Yeah. Is that sort of reasonably stated? Is there anything else?
Yeah, I think I want to. If you could indulge me for a second, I was having a conversation with my family last evening, and I was trying to put it into perspective. And again, I was speaking with my children, who are young, and I was trying to say that, we have all these people who are on a boat, and there's no guarantee because it's a really dangerous voyage, right? And there's no guarantee. But they haven't even left the shore, and they're causing people to walk the plank every day. And that's not, and we know now that they'll never make it to our destination. Right. And so if you frame it like that, like, yeah, I mean, we're way late because we can see the future. I mean, we can project, we can know. And not only that, you can do that with a lawsuit. You can walk back a lawsuit, right? So if you start from, let me just explain how these lawsuits under the Administrative Procedure Act tend to work. You file a complaint. The government can sit on it for 60 days. Okay. They generally try to move to dismiss or answer or settle. But if they move to dismiss, the judge has to rule on that. And then you go to kind of a final phase, assuming, generally these cases, there's no discovery generally. And then you go to a final phase where there's another round of briefing, meaning we file papers, they file papers, we file a reply, they file a reply, and then it sits at the judge's desk. And again, and typically these cases, unless there's a time-sensitive issue, can last longer than a year. Yeah. We don't have that luxury, right? And so we are already on an accelerated timeline. So that's really how I see it. So either way you look at it, this DV22 life raft that we're on has caused harm. And let me explain, let me just go to someone with higher numbers and lower, like who's being harmed right now, because I know that was an issue last year in a lot of litigation. In my view, those decisions talking about harm and the different ways of harm make no sense to me, because it's actually those who stand at the, I don't want to say back of the boat, but those who are being thrown overboard now, who may have quote unquote high numbers, the harm to them is terminal. They're off the boat right now, right? Yeah. We need to send them a life raft. So to me, if you're sitting there with a number in the hundreds, wherever, like Europe, and you haven't been interviewed, or low thousands, yeah, you're still on the boat. But I got to turn around the boat and go get some of these people who we know now pretty much have no shot unless we do things and fix this right now. So that's how I see it. I don't see the harm as, well, you have a high number, so you're not harmed. I see it as, you were killed. What do you mean you're drowning?
Yeah, exactly. No, I think that's well put. Okay, couple more questions. So this one's cute. Let's assume that this person is, just for argument's sake, a DV 2020 candidate, and they're asking, is it okay to have a baby in the meantime? So let's say it's one of the sort of people covered by the Gomez lawsuit. It's not clear from the message that that's the case. I'm just sort of trying to make the point.
Yeah, I always, I have a lot of people come into me who be like, should I get married now? I can go get a green card if I get married. And I'm always like, that is a recipe for disaster. Babies and children are blessings. I do not put immigration and those types of decisions together. I think you should have a child because that's what you want to do. The other stuff really is insignificant when compared to the child. That's like my personal belief. Like, I mean, I can't mix up. I would never advise a client to stop the pursuit of a family
because of an
or
immigration.
make a decision about your family
Yeah,
based on
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And
And
I don't believe, yeah.
there's good options to add a baby in the case at any stage of the DV case. There are ways of adding the child at any point in the DV case, right up until the point of entry,
Yeah, and I see
and
this
even
too.
after. So
And the one thing that jumps off the page to me is you have 2 tickets, right?
yeah,
So if anyone should be having babies, it should be you because you've won twice, right?
yeah,
You're
yeah,
obviously a lucky person.
yeah,
And one way or another, you're gonna win.
yeah,
And winning at life is more important. I'll
yeah.
say that.
I have had this question about DV 2020 people, though, in particular. And it's, their concern is, okay, I was interviewed in, let's say, early March of 2020, and then everything went on hold. I was on AP. And
Mm,
since then, we've had a baby, right? And so the consulate that interviewed us only knows about me and my wife. They don't know anything about the baby. When the case is restarted, it should be easy for us to get a visa because we'll pretty much be first in line for the
mm.
9,095. But what do we do about the baby? That's the question I actually don't know how to answer. I presume that there would be, still a way of adding that baby, based on normal lottery rules.
Yeah, I would
uh,
expect that too. I mean, that's
yeah,
and if that question was a class member for us, I would demand that the government add the child. I mean, I don't think they're
yeah,
going to do something that evil.
no, absolutely, yeah. They
I
don't want
mean,
to separate
they
babies.
better not.
No.
That's
Okay. What if my CN is not going to be current? What would help me? Is there any point in joining the lawsuit if they've got a high case number? This is Asia 22K, which is highish. Highish.
yeah. I think no matter where you sit in the boat, in the spectrum, in the line, lawsuits are you can't go backwards, right? Your position's your position, and it can increase your chances. Does it guarantee you get to shore? No. Does it guarantee anyone gets it? No. But it improves your chances. And what I would say to you is we don't know if you're going to be current or not, right? The world went current last year in June, but that doesn't mean that they're going to get to Asia 22K. My argument, if you were my personal client, would be they violated the rules and regulations already because they've issued visas to people who aren't current. So why shouldn't you get the same treatment?
Yeah.
So that would be my argument for you.
Yeah.
And a judge may say, if you were a plaintiff, that makes sense. What's one more?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And if you're not a part of a lawsuit, I can't make that case for you, right? So that's
Right.
why your position as it stands now is your position, and you may well get an interview and a visa. But when you join a lawsuit and you have a representative working on your behalf, I get to get really into it with the judge and say, well, listen, you're harming him, give him, put him. I don't care. It's not about being in the front of the line. They already let people skip the line.
Right. Helsinki. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Thank you,
exactly.
Helsinki.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't believe they did that. It's just amazing. But okay, this is about the motion for stay. Can you explain actually? Can they stop? Is a motion for the stay? Is it likely to be approved, or is it a point to be argued?
Well, let me just throw a couple things in there. So when they go for a stay, they actually have to meet the standard for an injunction because they're enjoining an order. And so they have to show 4 things. They have to show a strong likelihood of success on the merits. They have to show that they'd be irreparably harmed absent a stay, and then the balancing of the equities and public interest. All right. Well, likelihood of success. If we look at Judge Metter's orders and all the orders, he relied on an appellate decision in PK. This is a travel ban case and where they actually reserved visas for 2017. It was PK, and then it turned into Al-Makami. That decision, that was Meta's basis, right? And then there are other decisions from a couple other district courts, I believe in Northern District of Illinois, where they've done that too. And there's always been this clear line of demarcation between entering an order before the year ends and entering an order after it ends. And if you enter it before the year ends, you can reserve because you're really not reserving, you're preserving.
Right.
Right? That's the legal argument.
Nunc pro tunc.
So if I were the government, how am I going to get a stay and show a likelihood of success on the merits if the judge relied on their case? Right?
Yeah.
Which is why I've said they're unlikely to prevail there. Reserve the right to be wrong. I'm wrong. They're likely have an eye towards going to the Supreme Court. And they think, maybe they're overconfident, but they think that they have this conservative majority, meaning they have 6 judges in their pocket who are going to go and they're going to win there. I'm not so sure. And let me explain why. And this is a common saying when I worked at the Department of Justice. And I've had this happen to me where I thought I have the best legal argument. Look at the statute. The statute says this. Who cares about the facts? The facts don't matter, right? It's this plain, they say they can't issue visas after September 30th. I'm going to win. And then I go and the judge wants to talk to me about how this poor mother has just a small offense and that she shouldn't be removed from the country. And I get a nasty decision. And so the saying is, bad facts can make very bad law. And if you look at the facts in this legal issue, there are no more compelling facts than the diversity visa plaintiffs who literally were screwed. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, there was, and I don't think that anyone at the Supreme Court, including Justice Gorsuch and others, believes that the president should have so much power as to effectively contravene the will of Congress to issue 55,000 visas a year. So could it happen? Sure. Yeah, it should. It could.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's I hadn't realized it was the same level as the injunction. And as you say, frankly, these arguments, they did a pretty poor job of making those arguments, frankly, before. But they were bad arguments, just, they had bad facts. Okay.
I think
so.
Let me just say one more thing, because everyone, I think everyone has, and including, I know some of the lawyers as well, including those on my own team. I'm not talking about anyone else. Takes this appeal as a negative opportunity, meaning they're going to take something away from us. Well, what if we win? And now we have this precedent that we can reserve.
Yeah.
Well, we have that ace in the hole when they want to play fast and loose again. Right. So I kind of look at it 2 ways. I mean, this litigation you can lose, but I look at it like, man, let's go win. Right.
Yeah.
And if we win, I'll go to the Supreme Court. Who cares? Right. Who cares? Yeah. Let's go and make the arguments and let them tell us that these poor people should be shut up. Happy to take that. Happy to take that case every single day.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Yep. Good. Okay, and then can they? So the last part of that question is, can they start issuing visas after April? We don't know the exact timeline of when they're going to be finishing these. The system changes. There's 5 systems they're changing, so we don't know the timeline, but we think it's around about April. So we'll have to see, how that works out. But the injunction, the stay, will be argued fairly quickly, right? Is that my understanding?
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, some questions in Spanish. Let's see. For 2022, even though the government removed its prioritization law, I think it's law, but it clearly is opposite to many embassies. How can we fix it? Let me just add this back again. This thing here. I wanted to ask you about this. The first few words here, the guiding principle on which the consular sections have based immigration, visa, blah, 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 is that family reunification is a clear priority of the US government. That point was made by the government lawyers in various cases, including, I think, the Gomez case. They weren't able to point at any part of the INA that actually said, our priority is family reunification. Am I wrong in that? I mean, where are they getting this from?
Well, I think when they passed the INA back in 1954 and through its various amendments, family unification is obviously a guiding principle. But they made the same guiding principle when they promulgated the diversity visa program.
Exactly.
So
there's nowhere where it says this will be our. If we have COVID, if we have a pandemic, if you can only do some of the immigration, the 1.2 million visas a year, then you have to do these first. There's nowhere in the INA that says that, right?
And I mean, here's the difficulty with me. I mean, it's not a zero-sum game,
right?
When you say, where's the evidence that for every employment-based or other that they can't do a diversity visa? I haven't heard that. I think we have to stop getting out of this credit to the government that it's a zero-sum game. Meaning, if we do X, we have no room for Y, right? What are you talking about? Because what we're talking about, and here's the other thing. And I get, again, I get a little aggravated because I know the government's just trotting out these arguments that they read in a book somewhere because they actually don't have any feelings about the practical impact of their decisions.
Right.
We're talking about 55,000 individuals maximum spread out across the world, and you're going to do close to 1 million other immigrant visas this year. So have your priorities. Having a priority system and do whatever you want, but you can't simply, freeze out a category because Congress actually said do them all. And then diversity visas, if you're gonna, let's call it a zero-sum game. Well, diversity visas are the only ones that expire. That they can sit in the boat over there for the preference categories.
Perfectly safe. Yeah.
Perfectly safe. Our boat sinks on September 30th. So don't tell me about priorities, okay? And again, I say this like I'm arguing to a judge because that's my training, but this is the argument I would make. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And it doesn't really hold water just to put a pun on a pun and a pun.
No, quite.
Yeah.
All right. Is there still a way to join the lawsuits?
You can join us maybe if you contact me through Telegram. I think my staff may quit because I know I keep saying that the deadline was like last week. But I will work 24 hours a day if I have to, because I hate that. Like, I'm sitting here arguing and complaining about deadlines and then I'm cutting people off. I can't, I find that contradictory to me, So until we file on Tuesday, I guess maybe, I guess the door is open for me. I can't reserve though, right? I can't, because once we file, I need
the names are in.
For me to do my work for you, you have to be named. You can contact me through Telegram or my email if you have it, or Twitter or whatever. People have found me various ways. LinkedIn.
Yeah. Be careful with LinkedIn, by the way, or be careful with contacting. There was one of the LinkedIn page of one of the sort of fairly important government people at KCC was revealed, and I was worried that people were going to contact him through there. And people doing a job, even if they're doing the job badly, they don't deserve to be contacted by a bunch of people who are understandably frustrated, etc. So just don't contact people.
But that's an extremely important point that we often overlook, and it's one of the things that I tell our clients. I don't care what case it is, I will send the very nicest email to the government on Tuesday after we file, inviting myself to Washington D.C. to sit down and have coffee with them. They know me and they know I'm actually genuine. I don't want to fight, really. And if I can make this go away, not only is my personal life and my health probably better, my kids will enjoy it, but my clients win. And so there's no need for me to get feisty until I have to, which is not now. So I do think anytime you're contacting KCC, the consulate, to request a transfer or say you made a mistake, you can kill them with kindness and it will go a long way.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, DG here is saying, I think the upshot of this is he's asking about the appeal, but says, I think people should get on with their lives rather than waiting for the outcome of the lawsuit. And that's certainly an option for a lot of people. There are, if you're perfectly comfortable, if you're happy to win the lottery again or try again for the next few years, But for a lot of people, the lottery is the only opportunity they've got to get out of a difficult situation. And so they are understandably focused. I was from the UK. I'd have been okay. If my DV lottery had been taken away, I'd have been okay. I actually came on an H1 visa anyway. So, I'd have been all right. But I'm not sitting there in some difficult situation in perhaps a war-torn country, very poor country, or whatever the motivation is. So people should live their own lives, right, and make their own decisions. But the lawsuits can go on for a long time. So,
Yeah, I mean, and the way I think, I mean, when people start talking about what they think other people should do, I need to remind myself that what I think other people should do is not my business,
Right.
because everyone, like you said, comes from and anytime you're talking about litigation too, and I get this question all the time, is success rate and prediction and guarantee. You've actually chosen a arena to compete where someone dies, right? You're going against someone else. So it's like the Coliseum, or however you want to frame it, soccer match, a pitch, whatever. It's you against someone else, and someone has to die. So there's no guarantee, because if there was a guarantee, the game would be rigged, and it's not rigged. It's an actual competition. You can think you're the better competitor, and I do, right? And I do believe that my client's case is strong. But you make a couple mistakes, you don't make your best decisions every single day, you may not make it out of there.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's talk about Gomez case for a second there. So this is a Gomez covered plaintiff, or non-named plaintiff rather, but they've been DQ'd and the case number has been published, so they were current. Any chance to be included in the 9,095. You don't get to choose which visas go forward and which don't, right, Jesse? I mean,
we've tried to engage the government before we thought they were going to pursue this appeal. We had tried to engage with them on the manner by which they were going to implement the judge's order, which says they have to randomize it as they would under the statute. But there leaves a lot of gray area. What does that mean? Do they go back and look and say, oh, we screwed people from Africa, so we have to add that back in? Or how do they put the cart back together? We don't know. I would say if you've been, you're certainly included and you have an opportunity. But there's going to be people who win and people who lose. Not that they win or lose. It's just that they're all class members right now, and we have way more class members than we have reserved visas, because the judge did not give us everything we asked for.
Yeah. Okay. Kral, and for others, there's lots of questions about, what are my chances for the interview, etc. I said at the beginning, we're not going to try and answer those questions in this chat here. I don't predict, for good reason. I know how to do the math, but I don't predict because there's too much going on to predict. So we're not going to answer those sort of questions. This is an interesting question about Ukraine and the political instability going on there with Russia. What will happen if, for example, Ukraine gets invaded? U.S. embassy will probably be, the staff will be taken out, right? Any thoughts about that?
Yeah. So on that micro problem, what I would say is this: if your case is still at KCC, request a transfer immediately. If they grant it, great. If they deny, well, make it a place where you can go. If they grant it, great. If not, okay, then you have an issue. It gets sent out. If it gets sent to Ukraine, and we know they have no staff there, they have to do something to accommodate you. So that to me is a micro issue that a delayed lawsuit would solve. I mean, they can point to the circumstances on the ground. That's fine, but they've proven with Kabul and Baghdad that they can adopt a flexible, measures to accommodate even those in where civil strife has unfortunately affected the community. And why should they get to pick and choose? That's not, as far as I see it. They should just have a consistent reassignment policy for anyone suffering from civil strife.
Yeah. Okay. Another question here about joining the lawsuit. So just to be clear, you could, in a very, very small window, you could take on a couple more clients now, but people have got to hurry up, right?
Yeah, I can't. And again, I don't know if we have the link to post where they could
I
try to
put,
onboard.
yeah, I did the landing page.
Yeah, that's probably
Uh,
better. If you can't get in, then try to contact me through Telegram. If you can get in, that means that you may have referred. I have a great. I'm only as good as those who work on our team. To be honest, and they're working, and it's Sunday, and so if you can't get in the link, that means that they've quit. No, I can help you with that. So, but try the link first. And if you have questions, Telegram's probably best.
right.
Some people can use Twitter too to DM me, but I'm just not as good at that. I don't know.
So I'll add this video will be posted on YouTube. It'll be on my blog. I'll make sure your contact details are on there for how to find you on Telegram. Okay. Right.
Oh, I hold on before we get to another one. I did watch it yesterday, and I know you referred to this wonderful woman who does the AOS. And I
some of them, yeah.
I want to meet her. I want to talk to her. I have no reason to, I am not offended whatsoever because there are certainly people who do things better than I can do them. And if they do them for free, all the power to them. What I will say is this: the only way I may be able to serve someone in that capacity, we do adjustment of status stuff as well. But if it were come to September and USCIS either lost, sat on it and doing, you do have a right to go into court and request an injunction to order that your interview is to be held. And I will just say, if you were in that circumstance, I can help you with that. I don't know if she offers that, but if she does, great. If not, because I've had this work and I've done it. And usually we don't even have to file. I can usually just threaten it and get an interview because they do treat USCIS has a better process in place to expedite and mission critical and all that.
You're absolutely right, and they do generally help DV cases through. In my own adjustment of status case, I was actually current in June. I should have been interviewed in June. And that just for organizational reasons, in order to do several cases at once, they pushed me all the way until September 2nd for my interview. And I was in there, explaining how the lottery works. I mean, it was quite a funny experience. The whole thing was hilarious. They told me I wasn't technically able to apply for adjustment of status.
I just had a thought, and at the risk of making myself sound like a fool, I'll say it. So if USCIS is like their own little mini consulate.
Mm-hmm.
And they make all these fixes, and we have COVID here and they have COVID here. But if they operate and they do this amazing, they have this amazing way of making sure that those who are going to age out or time out get an interview. Well, we could borrow that. They could borrow that process and duplicate it, right? And just put it out in the field and teach our friends in the consulates how to do it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they do.
No, absolutely. It's like I told you, I did my citizenship interview sitting in an empty little office with two iPads in front of me, right? I had an iPad with the consular officer or the immigration officer, and I had another iPad where I was signing forms and that sort of thing. They have the technology. They have the ability. They can do this.
I've literally left my child's soccer game, gone to a naturalization interview with a client and made it back before the game ended. I mean, I know that's what, and here's the thing too, like when we're talking about an interview opportunity, and this is another analogy, and people are probably sick of me hearing me at this point, but I'll say this: if you go to get a driver's license, you do all the paperwork ahead of time, and you just usually, I'm not talking about taking a test, you just have to show up, and it's as if they've closed the RMV and said, we're just not going to do it. You've reached out, you've done everything right, and we're just going to close off and not open, right? And I guess it just doesn't seem like we're just one step away, and we only need this kind of I don't want to make it sympathetic, but if you look at the statistics, and you gave them to me, or I looked them up, your chances of getting a green card with an interview are 80%, and in some consulates above 90%. Maybe a little lower in others. But your chances of losing the opportunity after September 30th without a reservation are 0. So when we're talking about harm, no, I don't have to have that conversation too long because I can show you the harm.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Ethiopia embassy still misbehaving. So
Yeah.
it's another micro problem.
Yeah.
I guess you're trying to deal with that as part of the macro problem, right?
No, we have been fortunate enough we have clients. I think we almost have 10, maybe more from Ethiopia. I'm making that that's front and center, part of the micro issues that we examine, along with Kathmandu and Sydney. And so, no, I mean, this is something, it's unacceptable. This is another, again, I understand there's issues. We're not trying to ignore them, but what you're doing is you're saying, you're making that as an excuse without trying to help. And we can do this by offering a reassignment policy, a transfer, or I don't care if I have to fly there and set up a tent and you can handle everyone in a matter of a week. But you can't just turn a blind eye to these people. This is once in a lifetime, right?
Yeah, exactly. Our good friend Curtis is apparently watching. So hi, Curtis. He's pointing out that 9,095, the reserved amount for the plaintiffs, and referring to the baby question. I think what I was thinking there for Curtis's benefit was that people that receive a visa through the DV lottery program, if they have a baby after the issuance, they're able to go to the port of entry, and there's a process for processing the kid, right? Now, that's different in this scenario because it's not after the issuance of the visa. So I take your point, Curtis. It's different, but I think, as Jesse said, somehow I'd have thought they'd figure that in. Whether the baby counts into the 9,095, to your point, is another question. But I can't quite believe they would say, okay, an I-130.
I do want to, I'm actually honored and flattered that Curtis is spending his precious time with us. I do want to say, I think a lot of times people think that there's like a competition between lawyers and, who should I join and blah, blah, blah. And I just want to say, when I was at AILA and heading their litigation program, Curtis has been living this life with us on DV for a couple years now. And I just want to say that it's more of a Curtis is more of a colleague and I've learned a lot through his efforts. And so I don't want to sit here and ever have anyone think that I'm trying to dissuade people from choosing their best choice for themselves. I think Curtis is a fine attorney. He is passionate and I have a ton of respect for him. So I want to make sure that everyone knows that. And then that goes with Chuck too. I mean, listen, when I was at AILA, my responsibility was to AILA members, and Curtis is an AILA member, and Chuck is an AILA member, and that team. And so I worked with all of them, and I hope to do so in the future.
Yeah. Indeed. I also, it flashed by, but I saw something from EBM Scholars as well, who I don't know if you'll know, Jesse, but he's another YouTuber, so he's listening into. So welcome to EBM. But thanks for that, though, Curtis. We can certainly sort of take that offline. I think it's a point that some individuals will have. Life continues, as Jesse says. Frankly, regardless of immigration, people get married, they have babies. Those things happen. So
I guess you could turn around and sponsor the child if you have
for a 130. I know, but it's like
you don't want to do that.
You don't want to do that.
But what you could do is possibly, and again, this is maybe a conversation for Curtis and I to have offline. I mean, what you could do is maybe negotiate that if they ever get around to doing their job and issuing these poor people visas, and say, listen, whatever you want us to do, you want us to go file for the child or something. If you don't want to include them, we'll do that, but then accelerate it.
Right. But with an I-130 application, can the baby enter the USA while the parents have to enter the USA to live by the spirit of their green card? Can the baby enter? It's weird.
Follow to join, or those rules are tricky.
Follow to join
I have to go back to my INA book before I get too heavy into the weeds on that, because
no, exactly.
It's like
follow to join is the process. That's an I-824, and that works for DV cases, but the DV case in this scenario would have been over with when the visa is issued. So it's a weird thing. Yeah, it's a weird thing. All right, so okay, we've talked about that one. Now, just a reminder to people, I'm looking for questions that are for Jesse. I can answer questions anytime, but Jesse's here this morning, and I appreciate he's here, so I'm looking for those. Jesse, do you want to talk about the Muslim ban? That there was this statement about from 2017 to 2020 cases which were affected by the Muslim ban.
Yeah. So if you were affected you won in 2020 and you got rejected, that must have happened
early on, before March
yeah.
of 2020.
So number one, and this is why there are multiple 2020 lawsuits. So our class, the judge defined it as those subject to the big ban, as I call it, the larger ban, the immigrant ban. This would be someone I think that would have been denied prior and may fit within Go. But I think the reconsideration, I would say, as much as I want to say something else, I don't think so, because I think they would have already said no. Now, there may be a fix through what they came out with last week, but I'd double check. I don't think so. I think that
there should be a fix by the statement of the 2017 to 2020 period. Can have their cases reconsidered if they were within that time frame. That got difficult though, because the 2017 to 2019 were done with, right? So when it first came out, it was within 2020, and so it should have been reactivated. But of course, then it would be part of Gomez, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you got refused, meaning that it was just put in AP, you may qualify under the Go, but that class wasn't actually
certified. Go was 21, right? So
ACRE, excuse me, ACRE.
Yeah.
But I don't think that class ever got certified. So it may be that there's no remedy. Now,
I'd have thought, wouldn't they get so they would have the same chance as somebody else under the because you're saying they got adjudicated. I see what you're saying.
And so with matters order, I'm just putting the government says we have to process those who were not processed.
Right.
And if you were already processed, then you're not in the pool.
In the class.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I think this speaks to some of the frustrations our legal team has had, is because, well, it all makes sense now because they knew they were never going to get to them. But we asked them in August, let's work together. How are you going to implement this? We have class members pinging us all day, every day. Who's included, who's in, who's out, all the questions that we've been talking about here. And they never opened their doors or their minds. Yeah, that's a tough one. It's unfortunate.
I don't think this question is for you in a sense, but it's about some 2021 lawsuit that the judge never called for hearing. Will the judge ever react to such lawsuit again? They're dead, right? I mean, those cases outside of going good luck.
I would say, yeah. I mean, it speaks to the whole issue of reservation and where the good law is, which is if you issue an order on or before the deadline, you can reserve as the law stands today. And if you are out and you don't issue an order, it expires.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the judge is subject to the deadline.
Yeah, exactly. Shakira, I don't want to frustrate you, so I'm going to answer your question. I say every time I ask but don't answer, I will always ask. I applied single, got married in December, and now pregnant. If I'm selected, how can I go about it? That's fine. If you're selected, you'll be able to add your husband or wife. I'm not quite sure. Maybe I shouldn't assume. And child, no problem. There's absolutely no problem with that.
And this speaks. And I'll just say, can I just say, like, just from experience of having clients, and again, for many of the selectees, it's their first go around with the U.S. government and immigration officials. And I've said it before on Telegram, but I know. Listen, a month ago, I wasn't even on Telegram, so let me just say it out here. Honesty will bring you miles ahead with the U.S. government. And if you slip up once, though, it's over. Like you just get put in the bad pile, and they never credit you again. So if you have made a mistake, if they spelled your name wrong, if you put a different college in, if you put a different degree in, if you have a child, you can go to the consulate, and I'd advise you to write a letter and maybe send it in, or have a conversation beforehand. But just be open and honest, because if you're open and honest, they want to help you.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree. In this particular case, Shakira has not done anything wrong. She applied as single, which would have been in the October to November time period. I think she's talking about DV 2023, and then got married in December and got pregnant. None of that is wrong. That's absolutely fine. You live your life, right? And if you get selected in DV 2023, you'll be able to add your spouse, and you'll be able to add the child. The child only once the child is born. If the as soon as the child is born, you can add the child. You don't add a fetus, you add a child, right? So yeah, you're absolutely fine, Shakira, no problem. But I absolutely agree with what Jesse said. I always tell people, be honest, 100%. If you're not honest, it becomes very hard even for other people such as Jesse and myself to help you. And I won't help someone. I'm not gonna risk legal liability myself to assist someone in lying. I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. I will say this: make sure you tell if you ever have legal representation, make sure you tell them, because we're kind of like supposed to be like your little vault, and you can tell us all the dirty little secrets. But if you don't tell us, and I've had this happen, and then we we find out, it's very hard for us to fix mistakes later when they know, because the government's going to know, right? Yeah. If you committed fraud in 1975, the government knows.
Yeah, exactly. Jesse, we spent about an hour. It's quite a long time for you. I'm sorry about that. I just wanted to flash up here. This was the landing page that I put up there.
And there's a password, I think, that
DV 2022 something. Yeah. I'll see if I can find that.
People always say, people ask us why the password, if we're just going to release it. It allows us to trace the IP, and so we'll know if any government officials try to get in. I don't know. Yeah. So now they know. They know. But they're our buddies, sort of.
We should give a little shout out to Mr. Wen and others from the government.
They're like frenemies, right?
They're frenemies,
yeah.
Exactly. I've described you guys as like soccer players of the past. Like if you hire sportsmen, they will play the sport. They don't care which team they're working for. They will play the sport, and they'll do the best they can. Lawyers are the same. They're going to try and make an argument, from whatever side. It's nothing personal. They're trying to make a legal argument. That's their job.
And it's funny, because I've played on both teams, and I wish I knew then what I know now, because what I did then when I was with the government was operate much like they're operating now, which is I didn't understand, and I didn't care to understand how impactful our decisions make on the real lives of people, and I just didn't do that. I was just like, it's like legal issue, I win, diversity visa, But now on this side, since 2017, I did child separation, where I actually went and got children out of the cages in the United States. I still can't believe that actually happened. This diversity visa, the other things I have done to make it real. I think that it would do well for the government to actually, maybe we'll have an intern project where I'll take some government people and have them work with us so they can understand a little bit more about what people actually go through, because they don't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let me just, if you've got a few minutes more, let me just throw a couple of challenging questions at you. This is a two-part question from Kreelar. Yeah. And she's firstly asking about the money and why is it so expensive? Although I've got a story to tell about this accountant I engaged the other day, but you feel free to explain. Why are you charging so much money? It's a lottery. It should be free, Jesse. Come on.
No, I know. Well, I can tell you. So, and let me just explain. When I was at Ayla and I was being funded, it was a nonprofit, and we were funded, and we had pro bono legal support because people, I could do the 2020 litigation for free. And essentially, if on a personal level, this should be directed. I think what people also need to understand is I work for a business. I am an employee of that business. And so when I don't want people to think that I'm pocketing the 2180 and like I'm giving it to my children or something. I'm an employee. Which means, and I don't say that like, oh, I should be getting it. No, what I mean is this. I have a fabulous staff. The lawyers who work at our firm, I am honored and blessed to have the opportunity to work alongside them. We usually bill, well, not usually, everything we do is based on time. My hourly rate, if someone wanted to pay for me, would be $500 an hour.
I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
So and I've had people do this. People say, listen, I don't care. I'm getting screwed by the government. I'm about to get removed. Come help me. I want to pay you by the hour. I said, you really don't. And they say, no, do it. And I send them a bill and they're shocked. So I bill by time, and I don't do by results, but I do by time. And so this is, and we sat down when I begged to litigate this case because I could have done a million other things at a much higher rate. And I begged for this opportunity. And the partners at our firm, who are the very best lawyers in the country, I have no problem saying that. They calculated it based on how much time it would take and what we could do for people. And this is what we came up with. And I know it's not the right fit for everyone. And I've had a month of stress. It's been the most stressful thing. The illegal arguments for me are easy. People telling me they don't have the money to pay and I'm a bad guy has been really tough. I've lost sleep over it, to be honest. I don't like doing it. But you have, you have your take on it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's tough. I saw Curtis before did a lawsuit that was a sort of $500 now and $2,000 when you enter the country. It's kind of a nice way to do it. But to be honest, it's expensive to engage with professionals in this country. My little story about the accountant. I just hired an accountant the other day. He's charging $550 an hour, and I have to pay him by the hour. I need sort of 20 or 30 hours work. So, I'm going to pay a hell of a lot of money to that guy. But, somebody going to college here and becoming qualified as a lawyer or as an accountant or whatever, they've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in their education. It takes a lot of time. And everybody that's supporting Jesse's just the face, right? Excuse me, Jesse, but there's a bunch of people supporting Jesse. They all need to be paid. And don't be surprised that people living in America want to pay their mortgage in America, because that's actually what people do.
And I think it's one other thing that I need to mention while I have, because it's hard for me to translate this through written telegrams or short notes, is this: when you get me, okay, I am giving you, I'm all in. Like I'm not like doing this, collect the check and I'm out. Like, and I don't think anyone else is either, but I take this very seriously. This is my livelihood, okay? It goes family and work in that order. And so there's no other things for me. So yeah, your fee, I appreciate that, but I don't even care about that. It's about you and winning for you. So all the clients that chose me and want to work with me and have paid for me to help them with this problem get all of me. And so the fee to me is a necessary evil. I don't have a choice. Okay. But what you pay for what you get.
Yeah. Yeah. So Cree's got an interesting, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly there, Cree. Interesting sort of latter part. What can you do differently for us? What transparency do you have so that the possibility of an interview date after being included with the lawsuits? Obviously, it's not guaranteed, but it's an interesting question. What is different between hiring a lawyer and them just sitting there and waiting for themselves? What transparency do you have? Interesting question.
Me personally, or me versus people?
I think Cree is probably saying, look, I entered the lottery. I should just get my visa, right?
Oh, it's absolutely true.
But at the same time, why do I have to pay a lawyer? Why am I going to have to hire a lawyer? And frankly, nobody is suggesting that anyone has to hire a lawyer, but some people will hire a lawyer in order to give themselves the best possible, situation.
Well,
And that's the difference, I guess.
Yeah, let's back up and talk about why you would hire a lawyer, and maybe make a very simple case of it. If someone mistreats you, or let's just say you're at a shopping store and they deliberately leave the floor slippery, and you go in there and you break your leg, and you could file a lawsuit against that company and get damages for your injuries. Or you could hire someone who's trained to represent people, make sure that they get the best result, because the other side's going to have lawyers. And I think here it's about you have your position. You're right. You have every right to an interview, and you don't need or necessarily have to hire a lawyer. But if you lawyer up, now you're bringing in someone who knows what to do, who can put you in a better position than the one you found yourself in. And I can do it better than you can. And there's no doubt about it. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to win. You could certainly win. But I can improve your position. And what I can also do, and this is where it becomes a little bit of there's controversy, but it's the facts, it's reality, and I can't ignore it, which is if you're a named plaintiff in a lawsuit, and the government wants to negotiate and do good things or make this all go away, my named plaintiffs are going to benefit, and you're not, because you're not in part of the lawsuit. Doesn't mean you're not going to get an interview later on, but I know I'm not settling until all my plaintiffs are made whole, meaning they get compensated for their injuries. So, so being in a lawsuit certainly has its benefits, but that doesn't mean that you can't go it alone.
Yeah, that's everyone's choice. Yep, thank you for that. And I'm glad somebody asked a tough question. Thank you for that question, Cree. Luca, just wanted to Luca's been following me for a long time, and I appreciate his input always. So he's saying as it's being pushed forward on the appeals, it actually gives a chance for the BBB Act and immigration provisions contained within to see the light of day in some sort of form. I think this is a reasonable point. It's the damage being done is kind of fuel to the fire of we need something in the BBB Act or the Meng amendments, Meng 1 and 2 that are in there. So yeah, I think that's a reasonable point. Would you agree?
I think the other thing to think about is right now we have midterm elections, and for those of you around the world that don't know what those are, we have elections every 2 years, presidential every 4, but every 2 years we have midterms. They call it midway between the presidency, and it's usually a vote on how people feel about the president, and the way Congress balances itself is a reflection of the president and how he has done. Meaning, if President Biden is a Democrat, and if people are not happy with him, Republicans will gain sometimes, or the other way it works. And I think Joe right now, and I'll call him Joe until he meets with me on diversity visa program. Joe right now is on the hunt for some wins because he doesn't have any. Obama came in and he pushed healthcare, and he did it, and he got it done. Love it or hate it, he got it done. Joe came in, and listen, I'm so sick of hearing about COVID. We all deal with it. How can you use it as an excuse if it affects everyone? And he needs a win. And BBB, slim down somehow, anything it can be a win. And in fact, this is part of my negotiation, because if I have to go above the government to get to the White House and in DOS, like I said, I may do, is where I would sit down with them and say this: you don't even need to pass the law to get a win for DV 2022. What I need is a press release that you're going to issue 45 to 55,000 visas because they can use my lawsuit if they want to, or others, and make that commitment right now, right here, and you can take all the credit for it. So we don't even need a law to fix this program. And then here's the other thing that people don't understand: the Department of Justice works for the White House. It's an executive branch. He could tap the attorney on the shoulder and say, the hell you're taking those appeals. I'm sorry, over. However, for them to get approval, this must have either crossed the desk of the solicitor. Well, I know it crossed the desk of the Solicitor General, who is usually in cahoots with the president and has to think about that. So right now, someone needs to get to Joe about this. But I'm going to try.
Okay.
Yeah.
One or two more questions, Jesse. Would you mind?
Yeah.
Let's do two more. Okay. Quick question here. Do you have anyone from Nepal in the upcoming lawsuit?
We do.
Okay.
We
you have
do.
at least one. So you have reason to sort of argue with Kathmandu.
Yeah. Love that more though. But yeah.
Yeah.
One. Yeah.
It kind of needs.
I think the problem there is, and it's funny because we had a named plaintiff in 2020 from Nepal as well. So I know we can get him to work. So yeah.
Yeah, it's just expensive, I guess, in Nepal and some other countries. It's the same. Okay, right. I'm just scrolling down to see if there is one more sort of Jesse related thing. Last question. Jesse has a refund option if you get interview. Is there a refund option? I think is the question there.
There is, and it's a partial refund if you get an interview after 14 days from filing. We're filing Tuesday, February 1st, and then also a lower partial refund after February 28th. Again, you can say it's arbitrary. We actually did the math on it and based it on our work. And I will say this, and so this is, I've made this point before, but maybe it's helpful for everyone to know. I do expect that our best plaintiffs, and we have some very good plaintiffs. I mean, when I say best, I don't mean to rank them like that, but I mean those that should have been interviewed long before now, even if the program was not working at all. I do believe that, the government's going to take a look. They're going to look at all the plaintiffs. They're going to say, why wasn't that person interviewed? That consul's open, and he's got to really look what's going on there. And I do believe they'll pick off our best plaintiffs. And we have no money. Listen, it's the same way about the fees, right? If I'm not earning the money, it's not mine, and it's not our businesses. It's yours. You get it back. So that's the way it works. It's based on a function of time.
Cool. Thank you, Jesse. Well, we've spent over an hour. I'm sure you've got things to do. You're snowed in a little bit. 2 foot of snow, you told me earlier. So, I'm sorry you're going through that, but. And it's football Sunday, so we need to sort of start gearing up for that as well. So
yeah, I'm sure I can hear, for those of you, just to bring this full circle, I can hear my 6-year-old in the background having my daughter, who is where I'm going to devote my attention to next. I can hear her having a moment with mom because I think sledding ended a little too early for her. So, but I do want to. But as I said before, it's family and work in that order. And I think it's the same for you, Britt. And I think we really come from the same place where we love the program. It's something that is a tremendous law and benefit for people. It represents the very best of America, to be honest. E pluribus unum, one for many. I totally agree. And I think this is a fixable problem once we get people to see it.
Well said. I hope so. Thank you, Jesse. I'm so thrilled to have you on this morning. I'm very grateful for all the time you give, and same with the other lawyers, Curtis and Chuck and Greg and so on. You all. Yeah, I'm very grateful that a couple of years ago I could see problems happening, and I felt like I was in the wilderness. And you and I connected pretty early about this for DV 2020, and Curtis got involved very early. So I'm just thrilled that you guys actually took the fight on. I couldn't do it, so thank goodness for you.
Yeah.
All right then, Jesse. You have a great Sunday. Thanks for everyone who tuned in and watched, and for the questions. I'm sorry for those that asked questions and didn't get them answered. I was picking questions that I thought Jesse would take his time on. As opposed to some of the other questions. But I'll do another live session over the next couple of days for some of those more sort of normal questions. Okay. Thanks, everyone, for joining. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Cheers, Jesse. See ya.
Absolutely.